and welcome. My name's Alex Cook, and hopefully you've been enjoying this series on stewardship. We've been talking about a range of different issues about how we use the money that we have for God's glory. In this last episode, I want to talk to you about a really common topic that many of us think about, and that is retirement. You know, many of us work hard. We want to build up our savings with the view of retiring someday. But what I want to offer here is a sort of, I guess, a biblical perspective and a biblical way of thinking about this concept of retirement. Now, it may not surprise you, but nowhere in the Bible does it really talk about this idea of retirement. There's an obscure passage, I think it's in the book of Numbers, that talks about the Levites retiring at age 50. Now, some of you watching this might be thinking to yourself, I'd love to retire at age 50. The good news for me is I love what I do, and I have no intention of retiring ever, not until the Lord takes me home. And so I want to encourage you, though, to think biblically about this concept of retirement and really ask yourself, what is God calling you to do? You see, if you're called to something, it's highly improbable that that calling ceases just because you've reached a certain age, like 65, when many people retire. So we want to, my view as believers, is to discard the word retirement. But it may surprise you, though, that I still think you should prepare for retirement, because there's all sorts of practical issues, such as, you know, maybe you're in a very physical job where your body, once you get to a certain age, is not going to be able to do it anymore. It's just too demanding physically, and therefore you won't be able to do that job any further. For others, it may well be that you love what you do and you enjoy it. Why would you stop it if God has put it on your heart to do that job and you love it? Why would you stop? But the main view I want to get across here is that I believe if you're called to business and you're called to whatever it is that God is asking you to do in your life, whatever your assignment is while you're here on earth, that doesn't run out just because you've reached a certain age. Of course, we go through life's phases, you know, and our journey changes. You know, some phase we're going through that busy period raising kids and just trying to get ahead and pay your mortgage. Sometimes then the kids grow up and they move out, and all of a sudden you've got more free time to do things and to invest in things that God is asking you to do. But the point is simply this: I don't believe that as Christians we're meant to be retiring in the conventional sense of the word. We're not called to just put up our feet and sit and or go for a walk along the beach and do nothing productive. We are called to live as God's stewards until the very end, and to serve Him with all our heart, all our mind, all our strength, and use our lives to bring glory to Him and to build His kingdom. And as I say, that doesn't stop just because we reach a certain age. In fact, let me even give you a passage. Now, this is a passage which one really doesn't talk about retirement, but it should hopefully inspire you in terms of thinking about those latter years of your life. It's from Psalm 71. It says, "So even to old age and grey hairs, O God, do not forsake me until I proclaim your might to another generation, your power to all those to come." What a great way to think about the latter years of your life, proclaiming the might of God to future generations, whether that's colleagues at work, younger generations, whether it's to your children and your grandchildren. What a fantastic way to live your life, proclaiming God to the next generations. That's how we should be thinking about the latter years of our life, rather than just recreation, as the world tells us. So there are lots of great ways to think about this, but as I say, the message I want to leave you here is: how can you live a life that is a purposeful retirement, getting up every day on purpose, building God's kingdom and doing things that are really useful? My view also, and this is just from giving advice over the last 20 years, is the longer you work, the longer you'll live. Now, that doesn't mean you have to work in paid employment, but it means as a believer, you should be thinking to yourself, well, how am I going to use my time wisely to the very end? What am I going to do to build God's kingdom and to run that race to the very end? What's the latter half of my life going to look like? What am I going to be doing? Particularly if you don't need money and you don't need to work. What are you going to do with your time to run your race and build God's kingdom? Now, I mentioned before this idea that I still think you should prepare for retirement. Okay, now why do I say that? Well, very simply, the reality is that many of us, as we get older, we won't be able to physically work. And so we need to prepare for retirement so that we have enough capital to live out our latter years, to not be a burden on others, to not be dependent on the government and so forth. and to use our money wisely right through to the very end. But I say we need to prepare financially. Now, what do I mean by that? So I say to Christians, rather than to aiming for this worldly view of retirement, that rather we aim to be financially independent. Now, that expression you have to be very careful with, because when you think about independence, man's greatest sin is his desire to be independent from God, to do things his way, okay, which is sin. We are called to be dependent on God, dependent on his provision. So when we're thinking about retirement and so forth, we need to remember that we're always to be dependent on God for all his provision and meeting all of our needs. So what I want to really get you thinking about here is to think, well, if I'm going to prepare financially for retirement, what does that look like? Now, the most common question I ask people when I meet them for the first time is, how much income are you going to need in retirement? Now, most people can't answer this question very well. And so what I encourage them to do is to do a budget and work out what their lifestyle is likely to cost them. Now, obviously, when you're retired, ideally you've paid off all your debt, so you've got no home loan anymore, and your kids have grown up, so you've got lower living costs. But work out, what does retirement look like for you? What do you see yourself doing? And how much is that likely to cost? So we work out the income you need, first and foremost. Having a good sense of the income you need is critical. From there, we can then work out, well, how much capital do you need, okay? And from there, once we know how much capital, you can then put in strategies in place to achieve that capital, because you have what I call your target capital, your target amount, and you know where you need to get to, and you know what by age. You know, I say to people, you want to aim to achieve that financial independence, if you like, by a certain age, 65, 70, whenever you could see yourself needing to cease work. And that may vary, of course, by the type of occupation that you have. But the point here is you need to know where you're going, how much you need, so you can then put in place the strategies in order to get there. Now, the thing is, these days, thanks to medical science, we're all living longer. You may end up living to 90 to 100. And if you're retiring at 65 years of age, your retirement might be 25 to 30 years. Okay, it could be a very long time. And therefore, you need to build up sufficient capital to be able to fund yourself through that period. So that's some of the big picture things. But the other thing I want to challenge you here is, as I say, the Bible doesn't talk about retirement per se. So I want to challenge you to think about new models, okay? New models of retirement and what you could be doing with your life in those latter years. Now, if you love your work, you love the job that God's given you to do, why would you stop it? If you feel that it's purposeful, you can use the money that you earn through that job to meet your own needs and to build his kingdom. You have relationships through that job where you get to witness to people, to staff, all that kind of thing. Why would you stop doing it? Maybe God wants you to keep working. If you love it, why would you stop it? So that's one model. Another model could be you have parallel careers. This is a bit like that for me. I lead a stewardship ministry where we teach about money. We set out to, share what the Bible says about money with as many people as we can around the world. But then the other thing we do is we have a contemporary financial planning and mortgage broking business. And I'm running these sort of two separate entities side by side to, part of it to meet our needs and part of it to fulfill the calling that I have on my life. So that's a parallel career. For others, it may well be that you cease the job that you have and you do volunteer work. You don't earn any money, you don't need the money, so you do volunteer work instead. For others, maybe you're ceasing work, but you feel God's leading you to start your own business. Now, of course, if you're starting your own business, there are risks and so forth, and we all know the stats about small business failure, but maybe that's what God is leading you to do, to go into your own business and do things there. There's no right or wrong, and it may well be that God's leading you more into vocational ministry. Now, my view is, I've got to always be very careful with this, is because my view is if you're a Christian, you are in ministry. It doesn't matter if you're working full-time in a normal secular job, you are in ministry wherever God puts you. So leaving your job to become a pastor doesn't make you any more in ministry before or after. You're in ministry. Once you're saved, once you're a believer, you're in ministry wherever God puts you. And so that's very important to realise. So as I say, we want to think about new models of what retirement could look like. And the thing I would encourage you to do, if particularly a lot of people say to me, Alex, I don't really like my job, I don't really enjoy it. And so they want to get out of it as quick as they can, and they want to retire as soon as they can. And so what I would encourage you to do if you feel like that is to sort of dip your toe in the water with new things. You know, get guidance from others, seek the wisdom of others, pray to God for wisdom as direction, but dip your toe in and try new things. Don't just quit your job tomorrow and start a new business the next day thinking it's all going to just turn out all right. Be very wise, take your time, be prayerful, get advice, get assistance, and look at how you can create the model that's right for you in that longer term and in that latter half of your life. So there's some philosophical thinking there, if you like, about retirement. I hope that's really helpful to you. As I say, the key issue here is don't retire in the world sense. We're here to serve God. We're here to build his kingdom. We're not here to build our own kingdom. And so when we think like that, we've got to really, as I say, use our money wisely, still prepare for retirement, because there's a reality that many of us are forced into retirement due to ill health, perhaps redundancy, perhaps the type of career we have to cease work, and so we have to do other things. But what is God leading you to do to use that latter half of your life as wisely as possible? So thanks for watching. I hope that's really helpful, and God bless all of you at Full Gospel Business. As I say, please check out resources at our website, wealthwithpurpose.com. There's lots of free resources there, courses, ebooks, radio programs, all sorts of things to really help you get ahead financially, become financially healthy, and to use your money for God's glory. Thanks for watching. God bless you.